Do not ask me why, because I won't have an answer for you. I won't have a good answer anyway. In a world where hundreds of movies, all the film that comes out in the course of a year, I do videos on a fraction of them. Today I'm doing a video on this. I got to admit though, when the trailer came out, I was like, that looks awful. I have to. So The Munsters is written and directed by Rob Zombie, who's usually known for his horror gore fest. He has his dedicated fan base, no doubt, but generally speaking, people seem to agree that his horror movies are passable. In the way your dogs bark when you're filming. In that I have a lot of friends over and we got chips and popcorn and drinks and it's the month of October. We're gonna watch some horror. Oh, Rob Zombie film, right. And it seems Rob Zombie so loves The Munsters that he was like, I'm gonna make a rated PG family comedy. It's unexpected. Now, the trailer was terrible. I don't know how else to say it. The movie lived up to the trailer, but the trailer did the film no favors.
Okay.
But it seems the world heard the cries of the internet, thus this Rob Zombie Munsters movie was dumped on Netflix. Financial calls like this are why people question Netflix. Maybe they were banking on that morbid curiosity factor, which admittedly got me. I mean, here I am. I watched it, and I'm doing a video on it. Optimistically, I will say there is potential in the world of this Munsters movie. They all live in Transylvania, which kind of reminds me of the Beetlejuice cartoon. You're going to hear the premise, and then maybe you can just take that information and allocate it to whatever entertainment you watched that wasn't the Beetlejuice animation. You're not as old as I am, possibly. But you know that ghoulishly endearing world? It's a whole monster world. They have their economy. Then they step into our world and they find our world as weird and scary as we find them. The movie is essentially 3 films in one. You have your romantic comedy of Herman Munster and Lily getting together. Then there's a real estate scam. Then they buy a house in the real world. There's a lot going on in this movie, like far more than you would think, and I don't think it's gonna entertain children as much as Rob Zombie probably wants it to. Which is funny because Grandpa Munster, which I guess he's father-in-law Munster, because not all the Munsters are here, it being a prequel backstory reimagining. Eddie Munster and Marilyn Munster, they're not here. It's just these 3 Munsters hanging out. But he keeps bagging on bad comedy in this movie, and I couldn't help but think that's either unironically an amazingly self-aware series of moments, or ironically, the movie's just not self-aware at all. The movie has a color palette that could be fun for kids, but the camera work's just nauseating. It does that Rob Zombie thing where it's zooming in and out and twisting and turning. You could talk about how it represents the off-world, off-mindset of the Munsters, like they're from a different plane of existence, but it was also annoying in execution. And that's the thing about this movie. There are a lot of concepts I'm like, I get what you were going for. But it did not work for this. There's a camp and cheese factor in this movie that you can tell is a conscious effort to throw back to the camp and cheese factor of a sitcom from the 1960s.
It's like a stake through my dead black heart.
But in execution, this love letter fell flat. I mean, Rob Zombie wrote the movie. My first thought was, well, is he a good comedic writer? I know it's a lot of dad jokes and puns. There's some play on a situation that I appreciated, but again, you have to execute it with better comedic timing. A lot of it came across as an unfunny SNL sketch, or a modern SNL sketch. Take your pick, the 2 are the same. And that comes down to 1, the writing, 2, the directing, and 3, the casting. I get that Rob Zombie's kind of found his crew he likes to work with. I don't mean to single out Sherry Moon Zombie, and it's not for the sake of being a dick. What I'm saying is this film required a lot more from her than the rest of the cast. She's inexperienced at leading a comedy, so it comes across as awkward. I've never cared that Rob Zombie casts her in all of his movies. In fact, for the 2 of them, I'm sure it's pretty fucking cool to make horror movies with the person you love and share your life with. It's kind of romantic in a way, but when you switch gears and switching the genre over to comedy, both her and Rob Zombie should have known that she wasn't up to the task. Granted, she wasn't up to the task any more than Rob Zombie was up to the task of making a family comedy, but either of them or both should have known that. The comedic timing's off in terms of the writing and the editing as well. The costumes. My God, this movie looked like Spirit Halloween store. They were like, hey, let's just go into the dead corpse and the bones of an old Toys R Us and buy some costumes. It looked like costumes to such a degree that there's a scene where they're at this party in this neighborhood. This neighborhood's just having a costume rave for some reason. I don't know, it seems like I was like, Why didn't I grow up there? But these are people in costumes, and it looks indistinguishable from the other costumes previously in the movie that are supposed to be actual monsters. Shout out to Tomas Boykin as Lester. First of all, the entire makeup budget went to him, because that's the best makeup in the movie. Has easily, not just by a margin, by a clear mile, the best screen presence and the biggest screen presence in this entire thing. And when talking about movies like this, when I'm doing my videos, I like to come at it from different angles. Like, okay, didn't land for me. Who's it made for? Well, kids. Obviously, kind of. No, it's a rated PG family comedy. It's definitely made for kids, but I don't see kids laughing at the jokes in here. Kids don't care about who John Wayne is. There's a John Wayne joke. Like, they don't care. Yeah, I just can't help but think of the poor parents are going to be like, oh my God, it's on for the kids. And the kids are gonna be like, why is my dad watching this? In the end, I know Rob Zombie loves the Munsters. I mean, one of his big hits is Dragula, a reference to the Munsters. But this Munsters love letter was more akin to Freddy Got Fingered, where you could tell Tom Green was like, dude, I got all this money for a movie, and I'm just gonna make shit. And the studio's just gonna have to deal with the fact that they gave me this money, and that's kind of funny to me. It's how the movie always came across to me anyway. I feel like Rob Zombie either did that, or this movie's allegory, if not a warning, where it's like, if you take all the offensive comedy out of the world, this is the only kind of comedy that you're gonna have. Be warned. Maybe that's what he's trying to say. I don't know. And I posted a YouTube short about this movie, but the story in the YouTube short is true. It was midnight. I was like, oh, hey, it dropped. And I was watching it, and I was like, this has been going on forever. And I paused it, and it was 55 minutes into the movie, which is right around the halfway mark. It's right there, which is another gripe about this movie. This movie is way too long. Hour and a half max. Hour 20 minutes would have been better. But I was like, we're 55 minutes in, and watching the rest of the movie is another 55 minutes. That is the same as pressing start from the beginning and doing everything we've already done all over again. That was a horrendous thought, so I just turned it off and went to bed. Finished it today. So now I get you this video. But it's one of those case in point things. I felt like it was that horrible that I went to bed. So obviously, sorry Rob Zombie, this movie is dog shit. Love Hellbilly Deluxe though. All right, so The Munsters by Rob Zombie. It's on Netflix now. Have you seen it? What did you think about it? Did you see it? That's a real question. But if you did, curious to know your thoughts. Whatever you thought, comment below, let me know. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more.